Hello, guys. Welcome to the live stream. We are live once again. How is everyone doing? How has been your Sunday? Welcome, welcome. When you join the stream, make sure you give it a thumbs up and let me know who is here and where you're joining from. I would like to know, and then we shall begin the discussion in a minute or two. And if you're not subscribed, make sure you do subscribe, especially if you are a new subscriber. And if this is your first time coming across this channel, I'm Ray. I do content about African people and African concerns and issues, but I also do like to connect with a lot of Africans in the diaspora who are trying to come home, or even Africans who leave the continent to go to the diaspora, vice versa. So that's about it on this channel. So when you get here, let me know who is here and where you're joining from, and make sure you give the stream a thumbs up. Today we do have XP Life, and he's going to share with us his experience of reverse culture shock as an American who has lived abroad for many years. When you stay away from your home for so long and then you go back home and things start surprising you. So we are going to be having a conversation with him today, and yeah, that's about it. Hi, Liz. How are you? Thank you so much for joining. So I'm going to add XP to the stream, and then we shall begin the conversation immediately.
Hey Ray.
Hi, XP.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you so much for coming to have a chat with us today. You're always in the comments, but today you're the visitor, so
Yeah, it's kind of weird, but
interesting. No, it's not weird. So, so you're going to start by introducing yourself to the viewers, and then we shall begin the conversation.
okay. Well, first off, my name is Stephen Miguel. Um, my channel is XP Life Now. I'm a fellow content creator, but on my channel, I do things. I talk about different cultures around the world, and also share some of my traveling experiences. And that's pretty much how I linked up with Ray. I found her channel because I was interested in looking at different African YouTubers. So that's how I ended up finding Ray.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know how you found me initially, actually. Interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
So you are American, but you've lived abroad for a good number of years, for some time, right?
Yes, I'm actually from Southeast Georgia in the US,
Okay.
and I've been
Mm-hmm.
living outside the US for over 6 years now.
Mm,
I've been in 3 different countries. I've lived in 3 different countries, but I've traveled
mm,
to a number of different countries.
mm. Okay, interesting. So which country are you currently?
So I'm currently in Germany. I've been
Mm,
here for over a year, but unfortunately, I haven't been able to fully explore Germany due to the situation going on around the world. I've
mm.
only been able to go to a few nearby cities. I haven't been able to travel too far because of the restrictions.
Okay. And where were you staying before Germany? For the 6 years, which other countries have you been staying in?
So I left the US in 2014 and I went to South Korea and I
Wow.
stayed.
I hear
Yeah,
South Korea is a beautiful country.
it is. It's a lot different. Um, they tend to build up a lot, so there's a lot of high rises. But what you'll realize is that all of those high rises are just like apartment buildings. Um, it is, and they do that because it's such a small landmass. Um, and I was there for a year, and I knew that I was going to go to Italy. I was going to move to Italy after South Korea. So in my mind, I was already looking forward to Italy. And it wasn't until about 6 months into my time in South Korea that I stopped to appreciate being in South Korea and started learning about the culture there. Um, I ended up, a lot of people don't know this, but I ended up linking up with a violin instructor because I had reached a point in my life where I wanted to just throw out all of the old ways of thinking and old ideas. Things like, oh, the best time to learn a language is when you're a kid, or the best time to learn how to play an instrument is when you're small. You got to start early, and I wanted to challenge and throw out that way of thinking. So I decided to actually just uh, see if, I started watching YouTube videos of how to play a violin, and I ended up buying a violin and having one-on-one lessons with a Korean violin teacher. And what was interesting about that is I had never touched an instrument in my life. And the first time I went to practice with her, because I had watched so many channels and learned like the basics and just practiced uh, simple bowing. When I finally worked with her, she was super surprised that of my progress. She expected, you know how when people mess up on the violin, there's like this scratching sound, like
I
yeah.
don't know.
You never heard anybody try to play a violin, but anyway. But that was pretty cool. I ended up linking up with a violin instructor, and the reason why I brought her up is because she also taught piano lessons, and she was giving piano lessons to an older South Korean lady, and that was my group. That was my circle. It was a Korean woman who was a little bit younger than me, and an older Korean woman who's about the age of my mom. And every evening after we finished our lessons, we would always go out to eat together. And eventually, we ended up. The older lady ended up inviting us over to her house, and I got to actually experience dining with a South Korean family, which was a really good experience. So,
Okay,
yeah.
interesting. So I'm going to ask, did you learn the language?
I did learn how to read it. I, let me clarify. I learned how to read the letters and pronounce the words, but I didn't understand everything that was pronounced, because they have their own alphabet, which is very, very simple to learn. I learned the alphabet really, really quick, and I also learned basic words like how to say different foods, because that's the most important thing when you go anywhere. Learn how to order food from the menu. Um, so I learned how to say different foods. I learned how to give directions to the cab driver. But that's about the extent of it, because like I said, I didn't fully dig into the culture and start really traveling and trying to learn until about 6 months in, and I was only there for a year.
Oh, okay. So we've talked
Yeah.
about Germany, Italy, South Korea. Which other countries have you lived in?
Uh, so those are the three. Not obviously not counting the U.S., but those are the three, and the one that I would say that is what I would consider to be my second home is Italy. I was in Italy for 4 years, and I learned my lesson from South Korea. When I first arrived in Italy, I told myself, I'm not waiting. I'm just gonna dive straight into the culture. I'm gonna meet as many Italian friends as I can, and I'm gonna learn the language. XYZ. I was telling myself this. So the very first, so I arrived on a Wednesday, and the very first weekend, immediately I jumped on the train and went to and traveled from traveled to Milan. So just to give people watching some context, I I lived in the northern region of Italy, about an hour north of Venice, and the Italian train system is so good that, just like Korea's train system is really really good, but the Italian system is so good that you can pretty much get anywhere in the country by train. So I hopped on the train and went to Milan, which was a 3 hour train ride. And I ended up going to the World Expo in Milan. So I don't know if any, have you ever heard of the World Expo?
Yes, I know there's one coming in Dubai, I believe
Right,
this year, towards the end of the year. Yes, I know.
right. I mean, if the restrictions lift, then they'll have it. They're still planning for it, but
Mm,
um, so I ended up going to the World Expo, met some friends. My landlord ended up being really, really cool, and they pretty much took me in, and they always invited me up because it was her boyfriend, and then her two teenage kids, and they will always invite me upstairs for dinner. They always invited me out for sporting events and different things like that. So I ended up pretty much being adopted by an Italian family, which conveniently lived right above me. And through them, I met a lot of different friends. Um,
okay,
so,
interesting.
yeah,
Mr. Truth, I thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate you. So
Mr.
if we
Truth.
dive into the yes, Mr. Truth.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we dive into the topic of the day, tell us about the reverse culture shock, Having
Mm,
lived 6 years out of the US, that's a
yeah.
very good amount of time, I do believe. How often did you go back home, and maybe when you went home, or even what do you realize, like, oh my God, wow, this is like, you know?
So I try to go home at least once or twice every year during major holidays. Last year obviously didn't happen, um, which I'm overdue. I'm fiending to go home right now. But the first time I noticed it, and I guess just to throw this out there, like you said, culture shock obviously is when you go somewhere different. It doesn't even have to be another country, just a different area, and you notice things that people do that are different from what you do back home. So obviously, like reverse culture shock is you're now seeing your home in a different light. And the main thing I want everybody to keep in mind is that everybody experiences culture shock in their own way. Some, which is why, like you see some people, they get extremely homesick, and then they end up going home, and then they absolutely hate being in that other country because they have a hard time adjusting. And then some people meet it with excitement and joy, and that country that they're living in or visiting can do no wrong. Um, but we all experience it in some way. For reverse culture shock, the first time I really noticed it is when I was coming home from Korea, from South Korea. I was coming home to visit, and I remember being on the plane flying from Seoul I think I flew into Seattle, and then I caught a connecting flight, a domestic connecting flight in Seattle, uh, onward to Georgia. And on the flight from Seoul to the US, there were mostly Koreans on the plane. There were mostly Koreans. So everybody was speaking Korean. I couldn't understand anything that they were saying. When I got on the first domestic flight in the US and the majority of the passengers were American, immediately, I started to feel uh, annoyed. Immediately I started to feel annoyed by the simple fact that people were speaking English. And right, it's weird.
Why?
I have no idea. I mean, I have some reasons why I think I was annoyed. But the funny thing about that is when I ended up making a video about reverse culture shock, and it ended up doing really, really well. A- And the funny thing is, I thought that I was weird in I thought I was weird when I said I was annoyed by hearing my native tongue. But there were so many people in the comments that could relate to what I was saying. I was surprised, and I was really surprised. There were so many people who it didn't matter where they came from. Um, they were always annoyed when they went back to their home country purely from hearing the language. And one person in the comments says something really interesting, and I think this has something to do with it. It's very easy to tune out something that you don't understand. For example, if I went to Uganda and I hear people around speaking, what's the native language in Uganda?
Luganda in central Uganda, Luganda in Kampala.
Luganda, and I heard people speaking Luganda. It would just be like background noise. It would be like white noise, like traffic, and my mind will automatically just kind of filter it out. You see what I'm saying? But when you go somewhere like when you spend so much time not understanding and having something being filtered out, and then you go somewhere where now your mind is trying to process what's being said, I think that that's what was annoying to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, interesting. Okay. So that was from Korea. What was the other culture shock? You said you had a nice family, with a lady who showed you how to do the instruments. Is there anything about the way the Koreans behave? Because you know that they are very polite people.
Ye-
Tell us about more about Korea, or can just
yeah.
do your thing.
No, no, no. Yes, that's fine. So another thing that stood out to me was in Korea, if you're on the train is very quiet. Like no one's talking to anybody. This is what Koreans do on the train. They're This is all you'll see. Koreans will be in their phone. They'll have their little earbuds in, listening to music. No one's talking. So one thing that always stood out to me was um, how loud we tend to be as Americans out in public, and it's something that, and I'm not just saying, and I'm not saying that all Americans are loud, but the over the overwhelming majority of people that I get in my comments, like there's a whole comment string of someone just talking about Americans being loud. I haven't addressed it yet. I really want to address it and start to dig into to see why that's
That's
even a
very true,
thing.
by the way. That's very true.
But Italians are loud as well. But no one talks about that. Italians are loud too. From what I experienced, Italians are very loud. Um, but that was a big difference dealing with people just being loud in public. And another thing was the way the South Koreans ate, the way they ate. Now, fortunately, and just like I told Mr. Truth on another live stream, I, I feel very blessed to be born and raised in South Georgia. I feel very blessed to be born into a large family because being from there, they one thing that was taught to us was family value, like valuing family, um, eating together, things like that. Like we always come together for a meal. Like we always had Sunday dinners, And that's something that really stood out to me in the Korean culture. Excuse me. That's something that really stood out to me in the Korean culture. Every time it was time to eat, everyone would gather around the table, and you would have all these dishes of, uh, it would be mostly vegetables, and everyone would gather around the table and eat at the table versus being in the US, or even with seeing Americans outside the US, eating around the table is not a necessity. A lot of times we eat in front of the TV, and you see what I'm saying? It's not as intimate. There's not a lot of conversation that happens. It's you have your food and you're zoned in on the TV. So that was one thing that um, also that I noticed was that was different. But again, it didn't affect me too much because I was raised in an environment where you ate at the table and you came together to eat. I mean, we've kind of gotten away from that just a little bit, but it's still a part of me and it's something that I want for my family, my own family. So,
Okay.
but also
Interesting. Yeah. Mm.
on the topic of food, I think what you'll find is that pretty much in Southeast Asia or the Far East, Korea included because it's up north, a lot of their food consists of mostly vegetables. You know what I mean? Um, but and then you'll have the little bit of meat. Even when you go to a Korean restaurant, uh, the vegetables are free. They come a lot of times you can get the vegetables refilled for free, and they come in different bowls, you know, that you just pass around the table and you get whatever portion that you want. And they eat a lot of, like I said, they eat a lot of vegetables. But in the U.S., a lot of our focus is on meat, and I think it might be the same. Is it pretty much the same in your country too? Is the focus a lot on meat? No, it's it.
No, we always know you have to have greens. We call them greens.
Hmm.
Yeah, like as a side dish. It's like a local traditional meal at home. There has to be greens. It could be like we have something called dodo, eggplants. Yes,
Yeah,
it's mainly like a small sour eggplants and dodo as a side dish. Yeah, to accompany the main meal.
yeah, and that's another reason why, like I said, I'm very thankful to be from the South and from the country because I grew up eating out of the garden. You know,
Wow.
so yeah, I grew up eating out of the garden. My dad still has a garden to this day and several different fruit trees and everything. So it wasn't until after I left home out on my own that actually really started eating things like fast food and restaurants and all that stuff. But yeah,
Okay.
the food is really different. You don't have you. It's very easy for me to taste the high salt, this high level of salt in a lot of the foods. It's very easy for me to taste something that's processed because I've I haven't been eating things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, BK says salute to a South Georgia brother. Hi, BK.
Okay.
Thank you for the super chat. Thanks for supporting.
Is Big K from Georgia too?
That's what he says.
Okay.
I don't know.
That's what's up.
Maybe. I don't know. Yeah. Okay, so you've told us about South Korea, about their food and them being quiet as well.
Mm.
So tell us about, Italy. What cultures do you see there? And then when you came to the US, things seemed like a little bit different.
So the roads, um, and I think that this may be true for a lot of Europe, but definitely in Italy, the roads are a lot smaller. So you quickly realize I quickly realize how spread out we are in the U.S. Um, The roads are really big. We drive big cars, big trucks. And in the video that I made, I was talking about um, when I went back and I saw so many people having these huge pickup trucks. It immediately made me think like, wow, we are really wasteful as Americans. Like, why do we why do we even need all these big pickup trucks? And the funny thing about it is you'll see people driving pickup trucks. Like what's the purpose of a pickup truck? To haul something,
In
or
Uganda, a pickup truck is very important.
what do
Maybe
they
in
use?
America, it's not.
What do they use
To
pickup
pick
trucks
things
for?
around, because if you have a pickup truck, if you go to the supermarket, if you go to the farm, you can put like matoke in the back, if you
Right,
have beans, potatoes, if you want to carry around maybe like building materials and they want to build something, if you're taking
right,
the kids back to school, you can put like the cases in the back. I like a pickup truck, it can do many things.
right. The purpose of a pickup truck is to put stuff on the back and haul it around, or attach a trailer and pull some stuff. That's the purpose of a pickup truck. It's also to go on rough terrain. That's the purpose of a pickup truck. But there's so many people who buy pickup trucks, huge pickup trucks, and they never see a single day. They don't see a single day off road. They don't ever put anything on the back of the truck to haul it. I mean, like maybe once in a lifetime they'll have to um, maybe once in a lifetime they'll have to help somebody move furniture, and then that's it. But if you don't have like a construction job, or you don't fish, where you know where you're always going to the river or wherever, and you have to pull your boat behind, or you don't do something like that where you have to haul something on a regular basis, then there really is no need for a pickup truck. It wastes gas.
It's nice. I love a pickup truck, even if I had nothing to pick.
Ah, Ray, you adding to the problem.
What do you
Yeah.
mean by it's a problem? It's just a choice of a car. If I want, I can
Mm.
drive a lorry.
It so it what yes, it is. And everybody who buys a pickup truck, it is their choice. They can buy whatever they want. It doesn't change the
So
fact that
that
it's
was
wasteful.
kind of shocking for you. Like people have pickup trucks, they are wasteful.
Yeah, it's wasteful if they don't use it for the purpose of the pickup truck, because pickup trucks burn more fuel. So you see what I'm saying? They burn more fuel. So it just doesn't make sense. And that's something that you don't see in European countries, specifically Italy. No one's driving around with they're not driving around with big cars. In fact, there's some people who ride around on scooters. And then there's some people who just drive around in these, they look like little clown cars. But everything is about being efficient, especially in Germany. Germany is all about being efficient.
Wow.
So everything has a purpose and it gets used for that purpose. Um, and that purpose is bigger than self, because the reason why a lot of people get pickup trucks is because they want to sit high and they want to, what I'm saying? Or at least that's pretty sure that's why a lot of people get them. But it's it doesn't change the fact that it's wasteful from an
Wasteful.
environmental standpoint.
Wow.
Yeah, but you can
Wow.
buy what you want, Ray. You can buy what you want. Not gonna stop you.
Okay, let's look at some comments here. So
Mm,
Liz is asking,
yep.
I'm curious about Uganda. What did he do in Uganda? That was fun. Where did he hang out?
I have not been anywhere on the African continent yet. As a matter of fact, the trip that I had planned to go to Sierra Leone for my birthday ended up getting canceled. So I
Wow,
have not
okay.
been to Uganda yet, but I do plan on going next year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, let's say the roads are bad, so many roads are not paved, so you need a truck or a four-wheel drive car. Yes, that's very true.
I think people get more use out of pickup trucks in Uganda than people do in the US. We're spoiled. We we get big trucks just because we can. Yeah.
Okay. Big K, thank you for the super chat. Big K is asking, there is a lot of bad roads in the country. We also fish and hunt. We need the trucks. Yes.
Right.
You know,
Right. Yeah,
yeah.
that's using it for its purpose. If you like I said, if you're pulling a boat and you got some tackle on the back, or you gotta you just killed a deer or something, and you gotta like I don't expect people to put deer in a Ford Focus. You know, they're not gonna strap. You know, I'm pretty sure there's some people out there in the South because you see some crazy stuff in the South. There's somebody who has put a deer that they've killed on top of a Ford Focus, but yeah, you obviously need pickup trucks for stuff like that.
This person thinks I can be from Detroit or South Carolina. I don't know what he's talking about, really.
Oh,
I don't know what you mean.
I I don't think
FBA, what are you talking about?
you is he talking about like is he talking about on looks alone or
I
attitude or
don't know.
something?
I
Because
don't know.
I think the
Okay,
only thing that really
interesting.
sets us
So
I think the
Germany.
go ahead.
Okay, let me
No,
first read this.
yeah,
So this one says I can't pronounce your last name, Kembabazi. Yeah, if you
easy.
can't pronounce Kembabazi, then I can understand. You can just say Ray.
One syllable at a time. Kim ba
Eh?
ba z.
Yeah, 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 one at a time. It's a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, you're still making a point.
Oh, I forgot.
Okay,
I
it's
was
okay.
going on a tangent. I'm gonna try to get off of trucks now. Um, let's try to get off truck. No, another thing I noticed
Mhm.
from being in Italy and even Germany is recycling. Like
Mhm.
we in the U.S. we don't recycling is optional, and I think it is, and I think it depends on where you are. Um, we we pretty much just throw everything in one bag in one place, and then they come and pick it up. Now I know that that's something that they're probably trying to change. Like I said, in certain locations, every state is probably different, and even every local community is different. But the for the most part, we don't really recycle in the U.S. And in
And in
Italy,
Europe, it's different.
yeah, you have to recycle. You get fined if you don't recycle.
Wow,
There's
that's
actually
amazing. They're protecting the environment. That's really great. Yeah.
yeah, there's actually I use an app for keeping track of what day the different types of trash is getting picked up in Germany. And on that app, there's an option for you to report somebody for putting either the wrong trash or trash in the wrong
So you have
location.
to categorize your trash in
Yeah,
different categories.
yeah.
Wow.
In
Tell
in
us,
in
how
it,
do you categorize it?
so in Italy, they have different bins on your street. They have a bin for plastic and metals. So uh, tin cans that some food comes in, you'll put that in the same bin as the plastics. Obviously, they want you to rinse and clean out your stuff. Um, like if you have something that food was in, don't just put it straight into the bin like that because it'll start to smell and decompose and everything. But so you have plastics and metals go in the same bin. Then you have a bin for glass. You have a bin for paper. Um, you have a bin for biodegradable stuff. So food waste, that's what you would put. There's a bin for that. Um, there is a bin for cutting, like if you cut grass or you trim the hedges or chop down a tree and there's some random limbs, they have a bin for that where you put whatever greenery that you chopped up. They have a bin specifically for that. And then they have a mixed waste bin. This is just stuff that isn't recyclable, um, that you put in that. Like,
Wow, they're very
I,
organized. I love that.
and I won't say. I mean, there have definitely been times when learning the process, I've said, you know what, F it. I'm just gonna put everything in this mixed bag. And when I was learning, but I don't do it anymore. I separate my trash now. But you can get
Wow.
fined
Europe is so
if
organized compared to America, right? The
when it comes
efficiency, the
when
roads,
it well, I would say when it comes to, yeah, definitely waste management. Um, Roads, I love the roads. I love the roundabouts. I don't know why we won't fully adopt roundabouts in the US, because they keep traffic moving. We have stoplights.
you don't
So
have roundabouts. What do
there
you
are
guys
ve-
have? Because we have roundabouts in Uganda.
there are very few roundabouts. Like I saw a roundabout. I saw two roundabouts in Colorado. One was in a parking lot for a mall, and the other one was at the front, the entrance of a hotel or resort. But other than that, I haven't seen any roundabouts. We have traffic lights. So, like the red, yellow, green, we have traffic lights everywhere and stop signs.
Wow, interesting. So that was on the part of Italy, right? And a little
Yeah.
bit of Germany. You've covered both
All,
countries.
yeah. Yeah. And so the thing
What else?
about the thing that I don't like about traffic lights, I'm gonna talk about driving for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so the thing about traffic lights is, it's in the U.S. It's they've gotten better. They've gotten a lot better to where there's a sensor, but it's common. It's very common that you'll be driving, and you'll be driving along, and the light will change red, and you'll be waiting, looking around, and there's no cars coming, and you'll just be stuck at that light until it changes. Did you move it to where I'm on the full screen, or did you actually drop off? Just curious.
I
Oh, you're
did.
there.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure. Um, but yeah, you could just be stuck at a light, and there's
Yeah.
like
So
no
what's
car,
wrong with
and there's
that?
like no cars coming. What's up?
Yeah. So in Europe, it's different.
Yeah, because you have the roundabouts. I mean, you just yield. If there's a car coming, then you stop. But if if there's no car, you just go right on through.
Okay.
Yeah. And another
So
thing,
mhm.
go
Mm.
ahead.
I was going to ask you like about the food, the differences in food, because I know you guys eat a lot of fast food. Maybe not everyone, but you eat a lot of fast food. Is the same thing in Europe? What's like the culture about food and
So
eating?
you know what one of my Italian friends always, how they always refer to like fast food and McDonald's. They called it trash food. They always called it trash food. Um, but no. So in Italy, the food, it, the food and the ingredients were always fresh. Like they always, everything tasted fresh. Nothing was over salted, and it sometimes it was a bad thing, because you would eat something like a steak, and you'd be like, man, they didn't season this meat at all. But yeah, that was a big thing. Just the food tasted fresh. And also there are even restaurants, and I would highly recommend this to anybody who ever goes to Italy. There are restaurants that they have there where they're right beside a farm, a field, and whatever you order from that restaurant comes fresh out of the garden or wherever
Wow.
onto your plate. I can't remember the name of or I actually don't remember how to say it in Italian, but they're all over the place, and you can get stuff straight from the garden onto the plate.
Okay,
And
interesting.
yeah, but we don't have options. We don't have a lot of options like that in the U.S. I'm trying to remember, like what Liz was talking about when she was saying how you have to go to a grocery store, and no one really has their own food. Um, in Germany, I see a lot of personal gardens, and that's something that again, I'm super thankful that I'm from the South and I grew up with that. There's a lot of personal gardens in the South, like in Georgia and other southern countries, but that's not the majority of the country. Majority of people get their vegetables and stuff from the grocery store. And
Wow.
yeah, I was actually it's funny you brought that up. Like, I was talking with my cousin the other day, and I was telling him the difference between eggs and milk in Germany versus eggs and milk in the US. And this is why it's I think it's really important that people travel so they can see and experience different ways of doing things. I always say, like, the US is very extra when it comes to food, because in Germany, and this is what I remember growing up too, in Germany, they do not put the eggs, they don't refrigerate the eggs. The eggs stay at room temperature in the grocery store and onto the house.
Same
Same
here. Do they put eggs in the fridge?
in the US, yes. Eggs are sold. Eggs are sold in the fridge, and then you take them home and you put them in the fridge. And I did not know this until I was
For what?
watching. So my understanding is that eggs naturally have like a little protective layer that
Yes,
protect
eggs
that.
don't go bad. They're just fine, yeah.
Right, they have a little protective layer that protects them from things like salmonella and all that stuff, right? But ironically, in the US, they treat the eggs with some kind of chemical to prevent salmonella, but that chemical strips away the egg's natural protective layer. So because of that, they have to refrigerate the eggs. It doesn't really make sense. Um, th-
Oh,
yeah, the same thing with milk. Germans don't Milk is sold on the shelf at room temperature in Germany. And I remember when you went out to that was your grandfather's farm, right?
mm, mm.
Yeah, yeah. When you went to your grandfather's farm and you got the milk fresh from the cow, it was warm, and you were
Yeah,
totally
it's
fine
warm, yeah.
after
Yeah,
drinking that.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I just say that we're extra because we put a lot of things in our food to
Out of,
preserve it.
oh, you season a lot? Is that what you're saying?
What's that?
You do season a lot? Is that what you're saying? By putting a lot of things in your food?
No. So, well, I'll go back to that. I mean, I don't mind some of the see because meat, you got to season meat. Like, I can't. No one really likes the taste of just meat. If you cook meat without salt, pepper, or something, it's gonna be disgusting. Um, but that's not what I was talking about. I was just talking about the chemicals that are put on foods to protect them. Um,
They strip away the natural ability. It's natural protection of the, yeah, yeah, I
right.
understand.
Yeah. And that's what I was saying.
Wow,
Like, it's very extra, and there's a lot of things that are done in the U.S. that
are not
uh,
necessary.
are not done in Europe, and they won't allow it in Europe. So that should tell you something.
Okay, let
Yeah,
me read some few comments here and we get back to that point. Afraid says in Kenya, trucks are used to carry building materials, food stuff.
I
Can
like
I get
Kenya.
one? Yes, you
I
should
like.
buy one, you so Fred.
I
Let me
use
see.
purpose.
Alice says in Uganda we don't recycle. It sucks. It's not a law. Uganda is terrible, man. You know, the government tried to ban polythene papers, but it couldn't work because we have a neighboring country, Rwanda, which is the
Hmm.
cleanest country in Africa, I believe, and
I
there
heard
is
about
no
that.
plastic. Yeah, they don't allow plastic. Even if you're leaving Uganda going to Rwanda, you just know all your plastic in the case don't bother because at the border at the entrance they'll just go through all your bags and just take out all the plastic. So Uganda still has a long way to go. A
Important
black,
travel tip.
eh?
I said that's an important travel tip for anybody going to
Yeah, if
Rwanda.
you're going to Rwanda, yes, yes.
I didn't know
Don't
that.
bother with any plastic. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know
Black
that.
Prince goes in US. It is not allowed, but it is encouraged in most states. In the city I live, the city provide a blue bin for recycling, and it is collected every Wednesday.
That blue bin, Black Prince, that blue bin, is it for everything or is it just for plastics? Because I know or plastics and aluminum cans and stuff. Because that's about the extent of our recycling that I've seen. Roundabouts are old fashioned. No, roundabouts keep traffic moving. They keep the traffic moving. Like what's old fashioned is
Um,
going and stopping at a red light.
XP says, how did you like their spaghetti compared to African American spaghetti? I think he
All right.
means Italian spaghetti.
Yeah, yeah. So growing up, my when my mom cooked spaghetti, she always, she always had mixed it up in one pot, the spaghetti noodles and the ground beef and the sauce and everything. Always mixed it up in one pot. And even before I went to Italy, I wanted it separated. I wanted the pasta on the bottom and the sauce on the top, and blah 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 blah. Personal preference. Um, but in Italy, it depends on what restaurant you go to. Some of them it'll be mixed up. It'll be mixed up and depending on what you get. But one thing on the subject of pasta, something to keep in mind if you ever go to Italy, there's no such thing as Alfredo. So you're not going to get Alfredo sauce. Uh, I know chicken Alfredo is a big thing for us in the US, but Alfredo is not a thing. And to go a step further, chicken and pasta is a no-no in Italy. They don't do chicken and pasta. They do fish and pasta, so different seafood, but not chicken and pasta.
So I wanted to ask you about when you're buying things from the supermarket. I understand in the US they give you a price and then add taxes on top. And then in Europe, is it
Right.
the same or is it different?
No, it's different. So I don't know how it is in the countries that I did not live in, but Germany, I can say for sure, definitely in Germany, the price that you see is the price of the whatever you're buying with tax included. So you there's no surprise when you get to the register and you have to pay. But on the subject of grocery shopping in Germany or grocery shopping in general, one of the other things that I noticed is that, and even in Italy too, Italians and Germans don't buy food in bulk. They don't. They have like their little bags that they carry to the grocery store to buy whatever they're gonna buy. They usually buy at the most for the week or for whatever they're gonna cook that day. They're not stocking up. Most of them aren't stocking up on food for the month. And in the U.S., buying in bulk is a really really big thing. So you have stores like Costco, Sam's Club, where you can literally have I don't know what those things are called, but they're like flatbeds that you can just push around on wheels, and almost as if you worked in a loading dock, you can push around flatbeds and get these huge boxes of whatever it is, like this huge box of uh, 30 pack of chips or 20 pack of canned vegetables, just big boxes, and you could just literally fill up your pantry with stuff in
Wow.
the US. Yeah,
It's
but
different. Yeah, we also don't buy food like that.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
we don't stock on foods. You just normally you would go to the market. Yes, I think you can buy like food for a week.
Hmm.
Mostly like veggies, like tomatoes, onions. You could buy those like for a week. And
Right.
then things like milk, you can just buy milk and bread every day. Yeah, we don't stock food like that happens for students who are going to school, but in a home, you pretty much go to the market like on a Saturday and then maybe like midweek. Okay, you could
Right.
stock maybe like on fruits, but even then in Kampala during the week, people tend to sell things by the roadside every day, especially evening hours,
Yeah.
because they know when people are going home, everyone is looking for dinner. Like you buy your dinner along the way as you go home. You buy the
Yeah.
food, reach home and cook. So we just get food for the day in most times. Yeah, that's how it is in Uganda general actually. So I
Yeah. One.
find it interesting. Like when you stock food for the month, that's just we don't even own big fridges actually like that. In Uganda, we
And,
assume the fridge is meant to hold drinks for the most part. Okay,
mhm.
drinks, like milk, yeah, things which will go like, bad if you don't put them in the fridge. But you
Yeah.
won't find people keeping meat in the fridge in Uganda. Not really
Well,
common. You go and buy meat from the market, not that common really. Yeah.
yeah. It's. I mean, we have deep freezers in the
Mm-hmm.
U.S. Just a huge freezer um, that you just stock up with either meat or whatever. Matter of fact, um, I remember when I was young, and we had a garden and chickens and everything. Um, we would go fishing with our daddy like every once in a while and come back with a bunch of fish and everything. I remember having a deep freezer that was full of frozen vegetables, frozen fish that we caught. My dad was a hunter, so we had deer meat. We had pork from whatever pig that had gotten slaughtered uh, for the season. Uh, like we had some of everything in our deep freezer, just packed. And the and this is the interesting about it. Having a garden is so is so like goes such a long way because we didn't even have a big garden. Our garden wasn't. I mean, it was big for a kid, because everything is big to a kid. But even even with a family of five, my mom, my dad, my two older brothers, even with a family of five, the deep freezer and the fridge and the shelf full of canned vegetables stayed full, and we still gave food away. Like that's how powerful having a garden is. Like you end up with more food that you than you know what to do with. You have to give
Yeah.
some away. So
Yeah. But you can sell the food, right? Because in Uganda we do subsistence farming. Subsistence farming is you grow some for eating at home and then some for sale.
right.
Or you guys
So
don't have that option.
so we didn't sell anything, but they do. We do have farmers markets. Like they're pretty. They're not all over the place. Um, and I think they're usually on like a Saturday or something. Where I know there's one that is outside of Atlanta, like a huge farmers market, but um, they're not all over the place. Especially as you leave the South, you're not gonna really find stuff like that.
So meaning
Um,
you can't get fresh food. It's difficult to get fresh food.
you got to go out of your way to get it. I'll say
Wow.
that, and I can't even speak for being in the city. I don't even know how they would even have access to get fresh food in the city because
Okay. Wow.
it's just yeah. But one thing I
So
one one thing I do want to point out that was a major difference is in Italy and even in Germany they have town centers. Um, One thing that stood out to me in Italy was every single day in either the town you were in or in a neighboring town, there was a market, and that's where you could go to buy all of your fresh vegetables or whatever, spices, whatever you wanted. Each day, like Monday, it was in my town. Tuesday, it was in the neighboring town.
I love those markets.
Yeah,
We have them in
and
Uganda as well. They are
and you
so
get
much fun. Of
and
course,
you
now because of the current situation, but those markets, they're just like fun, Yeah.
Yeah, and the cool thing about it is you get food for cheaper than what you would get it if you went to
Yes.
a grocery store. So,
Yes. And
um,
it also brings people together,
yeah.
the sellers and the buyers. Okay, like when we were kids, okay, yes, where I grew up, we did have it. It was like the Ugandan version of a town, but it was a
Hmm.
little bit far away from the town. But it's like the place to go to, even like buying clothes to wear, like things are very
Yeah.
cheap. If someone wants to buy like a cow or a goat, I'm sure Liz knows the place. It's called Nyamayenje.
Well, it was.
Yeah, so it was just like a fun thing, I
Yeah.
know those markets. Interesting that they have them in Europe. Okay, so let's
Well,
look at some.
well, they're not selling goats and cows at the market.
Of
If they're
course, I
selling goats,
know.
yeah, if they're selling them, they already cut up and packaged and
As
ready
just
for.
telling you, here they will sell you like a whole goat, a hen. You just take it home and kill it yourself.
Wow. Yeah.
I know you guys, you probably do not. Okay, maybe you grew up on a farm, it's different, but I'm sure some people don't have like never killed a hen or plucked off the feathers. That's how we do it here. You buy a live hen. There is no one who's going. Okay, in Kampala, because it's a city, you can go
Hmm.
to a butcher shop and the hens are like hung, or you can go
Yeah.
to the supermarket and you buy the ones in the fridge. But we don't like that. That's not like us.
Yeah.
So for me, personally, I've if I've bought like chicken in the supermarket, it has been maybe like once or twice in my entire life. That's what I mean. And
Hmm.
that's because like I'm in Kampala, I want like a small portion of chicken. I don't want to
Yeah.
buy like the entire hen. But growing up at home, we've never bought chicken from the supermarket. If you want to buy chicken, you go pick it, you pluck off the wigs, you just roast the chicken.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how we do it here.
You
So
you
it's
definitely
funny.
you definitely don't want to be buying chicken in the U.S. from from the supermarket because they be them chickens be on steroids. They be like, man, there's no way a
I also,
drumstick is that big. Like them be
yeah,
some
I
big
also
chicken.
find it weird when they sell you like drumsticks alone, wings
Hmm.
alone. That's then the breast alone. That's weird because I'm thinking, so how many chickens are these? Because in my mind, you're supposed to get like two drumsticks, two breasts or two whatever, like the way the
Hmm.
chicken is, unless you buy two chickens. So if I go to a supermarket and see like drumsticks alone, breasts alone, that's just like weird. So like, why did you put the
Yeah,
other parts of the chicken?
you packaged them in another thing. You got your
Yeah, yeah.
you got
I
the
mean,
thighs. Yeah, yeah.
it's
We got the chickens on
interesting.
an assembly line. Like we butchering
Uh,
on an assembly line. So.
Okay, so I'll read Mr. Big K's comment because he's the one super
Mm,
chatting. So
yeah.
thanks, Big K, for supporting the channel. So Big K says, my grandparents killed or smoked cows, pigs. They also canned fruits and vegetables in mason jars. It was fun for a kid. The winter was coming. Yeah, that sounds fun. When you kill a cow or a pig, oh my God. And everyone starts roasting and you're eating the meat. It's a lot of fun, definitely. I can
So I
imagine.
so I was never around that I can remember. I do remember riding in the truck, taking pigs to the butcher. Um, but I was never really around to see a pig get slaughtered. Now I did see chickens get killed. I do remember. I do remember my dad like grabbing a chicken by the neck and just like lassoing it around to break the neck. But the only meat that I have caught cleaned and killed myself is fish. Like I could clean fish all day. My oldest brother, though, he's the hunter. He'll be out in the woods, kill a deer, gut it, clean it, and then the couple days
Wow.
later we got sausages. So like he's the hunter.
Okay.
Me and we're all fishers, but he's like the hunter of the group.
I've never touched a live fish, so it would be, I don't know, I've never.
Yeah.
I want to read some comments that were put on earlier. Let me just go through them.
Yep.
Let me see. A black parent says he's sure right about the eggs in the US and Germany. I noticed that too. Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. It's not season, it's just preservatives that prevent sickness, but again, they are chemicals.
Yeah. And chemicals that strip away the natural barrier, the natural protection that the egg already has.
Yeah. Truth says, of course, you'll get embarrassed if your money is short, if you think you don't have to pay taxes on top of the.
Yep. Yeah, be put. I definitely been there. You be your mama would be like, "Hey, put this back."
It says people are waiting on a zombie apocalypse, so they stockpile.
I guess. I mean, too much Walking Dead.
Um, in US, you even have walk-in refrigerators. I mean, that's how the that's how big people are on food. Hi, Liam.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me see which other comments is interesting. Yeah.
There's something else that I want to touch on after you
Please do. Yeah.
after you finish going through the comments.
I think that's it. The rest are just like people chatting amongst themselves. Yeah.
So another thing that stood
Mm.
out to me that was very annoying. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I went out to I remember going out to eat, or I was visiting. I remember going out to eat at a restaurant, and even earlier that day, just having breakfast. And there was a TV, but obviously the place I went to eat, it was like a sports bar, so it was tons of TVs. And I just remember feeling overstimulated, like I was being bombarded with watch me, buy this. Um, like I don't know how people watch normal television anymore because there's so many commercials. You get bombarded with commercials, the news, um, just so much that it's when I went back and just did something normal, like go out to eat, like it was I was very sensitive to everything that was being shown or put in my face, um, in that environment. It was just one thing that I think.
So, what you're trying to say is that TVs in Europe are not as,
Well,
they
so
don't advertise as much, or are they a little bit quieter than the TVs in
well,
America?
I'm not going to say that. It's honestly, this is more of has been more of a personal choice. Like I have a TV, it's right beside me, but I really use it for a second monitor than I use it to actually watch television. Um, but it just the time that I spent with the Italian family and a couple other Italian families, because through them I met other families too. It just the TV just didn't seem like the center of attention when there was a gathering
Oh,
or
okay.
anything. It just didn't
Whereas in
seem like it was the
America,
center
the
of attention.
TV brings people together. The TV is the center of attention, right?
I, I mean, they keep getting bigger and bigger. Like pretty soon, a TV is just going to be a wall that, and you just get a projector. I mean, they do have wall TVs. Like people are going to have their own home theater that takes up an entire wall.
Yeah,
It's
but I've
that
seen
much of a
people who have
focus.
home theaters at home, right?
Uh, I mean, some
Well,
people
that's a
do.
different thing.
Some
Yeah.
people do, but that's not something that everybody has. That's not something that everybody has. You build out, you make your living room. You try to turn it into a home theater, because they have like furniture pieces that accent the TV. But again, TVs are getting bigger and bigger. Like pretty soon, you're just gonna have to buy like loose pieces of furniture so you can move them whenever the TV gets bigger, or the projector. But
So
yeah,
I would like
TV.
to ask you about the measurements, the measurements in Europe and America. We
Yeah,
are referring to Europe because I think you've spent
yeah,
most time in Europe, right? Four
yeah.
years plus compared to Korea in Asia.
But even
Would you have
it,
something to say about that?
yeah, it looking at it now, it doesn't really make sense to use the imperial system. It makes more sense to use kilometers, meters, and stuff like that, because it's easy to do the math on it, because in the US you have miles, and then you have X amount of feet that make up a mile, where it's some random number of feet that makes up a mile. But it's very everything, with the metric system, everything is on the scale of 10, so it's easy to calculate. I don't really understand why we ever went to a system like that. I guess it would just, I mean, that was like way back when, but it just, when you look at it, it's just one of those things like, they don't really make sense, but okay, that's what we're doing. Yeah.
Okay, can first sip on your tea. Next, you want sip on your tea. As I
And the weight. The weight is also something. It's weird when someone tells me that they are, was it 56 kilograms, or 60 kilograms. And in my head, I'm like, at first, it's like, wow, there's no way you could be that small. But then it's like, oh, it's kilograms. Let me see what the actual pound conversion is.
pounds
Uh,
pounds confuse me as well because we use kilograms, when someone says
right.
like I'm 200 pounds, I'm like, what? Pounds is money. I think of the pound sterling, the British pound sterling, not like
Yeah.
in terms of weight, so also use kilograms. One says here in USA they're always advertising medicine insurance at every
Yeah.
commercial break.
Yeah. And then and
um
then and then they'll turn around and have those commercials from the law firms that says, if you or someone have taken medicine X and experienced X 1, 2, 3 side effects, you might have a case, saying that you can sue if you took whatever medicine and you had an adverse effect. Like,
wow,
there's a ton of
wow.
those commercials too.
I want to come back to commercials and ask you something about it.
Hmm.
A black friend says, so true. That's why I spend so much time watching YouTube videos and TV. I only watch sports on TV the longest. Actually, I
Yeah.
also don't watch TV either. I don't even own a TV. I just haven't found a reason to buy a TV. I don't know if I'll buy a TV. I don't
In,
know.
in France, you have to pay a tax for your TV. There's a TV tax
Wow.
if you own a TV.
I would never pay that tax. YouTube
Right.
for.
Yeah.
So I think I watched someone who was comparing Europe and America, and they talked
Hmm.
about the American commercials, the way Americans are very comfortable to advertise things around, is it like fertility or
You mean like
pills,
birth
like
control?
use of birth control, yeah,
Yeah.
contraceptive, things like that. What do you
Yeah.
have to say about that? She was European, so she thought that was really weird.
So I I don't know if that's something that is or is not advertised in Europe, because again, I don't watch too much TV, but the
Okay.
TV that I did watch, I don't remember ever seeing a commercial like that. Um, but again, I'm not saying that they don't have it. I just never seen one. But they do. It depends on what the channel is. The commercials are tar- uh, it depends on whatever channel. Like if you're watching Lifetime channel, something like that, that it's mostly women viewers, then you'll have commercials like birth control and all kind of stuff like that. But for a cartoon channel for kids, there's not going to be something talking about was it like Nuvaring or whatever it's
Yes.
called, or there's not going to be a birth control or a something for women's health on a kids channel. There's going to be commercials about toys, um, things like that. But they are very free and liberal with the birth control commercials. They just put it on out there.
So, as having grown up in America, what did you find about weird about Europe? Let's take it the other side.
Other
What
side,
shocked you about their culture? Yeah.
um, it's gonna take. I gotta turn it off. I would say I would say the the neighbor in Germany, the neighborhoods, it's very um, it's almost like, so in the US, if you can live in a subdivision or that has like a cul-de-sac or whatever, and all of those houses will be a part of some kind of housing association to where you have to keep your yard up to a certain standard. Like you can't let the grass grow too high or do certain things in that community. But in Germany, it's just expected of you. Like it's expected of you to take care of your yard, to cut the grass. It's expected of you to shovel snow on the sidewalk, for people to be able to walk. That's expected. It's not, and it's expected of everybody. It doesn't matter where you live. Um, will people call you out? It hasn't happened to me, not yet anyway. But I just try to do things to fit in. I'm trying to think of something that was space in Korea. One of the things that really annoyed me was how close people get to you. Like their sense of their personal bubble is way smaller in Korea than it is in the US. So you'll be in line and someone will be almost right up on you, to the point to where you could probably feel them breathing on the back of your neck if they were tall enough, because a lot of Koreans is short. But they're that close. And space is a really uh, that caught me by surprise. There's something else.
Yeah, I know Americans be like, oh, don't get too close to me, don't get in my space.
Right,
I'm like, what are you talking? What do you mean? What is space? Like,
right.
we also don't have a thing like space. I mean, so do you guys feel uncomfortable when someone comes too close to you?
Yeah, because invading somebody's personal space is it can make it can make them feel uncomfortable. People will get defensive. They'll be like, "Hey, can you please back up?" Um, like I don't know how South Korea survived with social distancing, because again, they're
Is
all
it the
about
same
being
thing when it
close.
comes to relationships, or it's just physical?
What do you mean?
In South Korea, do people also get to like easily make friends, and want to know like
So
you and about you, or is it just like a physical thing?
so I was gonna, yeah, I was gonna touch on that. So in the U.S., if you see somebody that you like, if I saw a woman that I found attractive, I could just walk up and talk to her, and just make small talk, and do say whatever to try to be friends, and get a number or whatever. But in Korea, it's a bit different. You can't just start up random conversations. You can't just start up conversations with random people. For example, on the train, if I just started trying to talk to somebody on the train, it would be really weird. And with dating, this is what was described to me from a Korean. They were saying, "Hey, you pretty much have to know somebody. Like you have to be introduced to them through someone else. Like you have to be doing something. Like you have to either work together, go to the same school. Um, they're already. It's almost like someone in their circle has to know you, and you get introduced to them from someone in their circle, and then you can now talk. You see what I'm saying? You can't just randomly walk up to someone that you like and try to spark a conversation. It's going to be very awkward for them.
Wow, interesting. So, Mr. Truth says that's right, and having PTSD does not help people in your personal space.
No, no,
No personal space in most of Asia. I noticed that in China too. I think we also don't have personal space. I think it's like an American thing. You guys just have it in your mind that when someone is like too close, you just feel like, why are they
back
getting
up.
so close to me?
Yeah,
We don't
like
have
what?
that really.
Like what you what you trying to do? Like you trying to steal something? You trying to what you trying to do? Why? There's no reason for you to be this close.
We don't have that. We don't have that really.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you have any points to conclude with?
There is one thing that I do want to pass on to the viewers and whoever watches this after. So the main thing, like I don't want it to come across that I'm just like pooping on the U.S. because there's still a lot of things that I like about the U.S. Mainly family. After that, it's food, some of the food. But I want to encourage people to travel. And the reason why I want to encourage people to travel is because um, traveling doesn't just introduce you to different cultures and different ways of doing things around the world. It also helps you discover who you are. And the reason why I say that is because I don't know if you ever heard of the thing called Johari's window. Have you ever heard of that? It's basically just a model where it's like four quadrants. Um, Actually, do you mind? Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So there's information that you know about yourself that everybody else knows, you and everybody else knows, and then there's stuff that you keep hidden from everybody else. You know it, but they don't know it. And then there's things that people know about you that you don't know. There's things that once we actually start talking and I get to know you, they're going to be things that you do that you're totally unaware of, and only someone from the outside can bring it to your attention. And then there's the complete unknown. It's something that I don't know about myself and you don't know. And that's an area that I would say only comes to light when you have different experiences. You find out how you're going to, like, I don't know how I'm going to be or feel or act the first time I go to Uganda. The first time I'm in the market and I have to bargain, I don't know how I'm going to act. You don't know how I'm going to act. It's I'm not going to find that out about myself until I put myself in that situation or that experience or I have that experience. Um, so traveling around the world is just as much of having all these cool experiences as it is self-discovery and self-awareness. So that's I just
I
want to end
agree
on
with
that.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can be eye-opening. I agree with you.
Yeah. Even from a
I,
even on a from a country, the perspective of a country, because people in that country have this idea of what their country is like, but they've never been outside their country to see it from another nation's perspective. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? So
true. So in Jamaica, in taxi cabs, people will sit on your lap. Same here in Uganda. We don't have a problem with that.
Did not know that. I
Hero
did.
Tooth says, I'm traveling to Ghana in a few months. Okay, that's nice.
Yeah,
Sure, you love it.
I hope to. I really hope to be in Ghana later this year.
Okay.
That's my soft plan. That's my plan to be in Ghana later this year. Appreciate it, Mr. Truth.
Mr. Truth says, a well spoken. This stream is very informative, educative, well traveled. I can relate. So, my last question to you is, having gone to all these different countries, what do you appreciate about the USA as a country that other countries can't match or that other countries don't have?
I hardcore appreciate the fact that you can be nobody from nowhere, and with hard work and smart moves, you can pretty much have whatever you want. It really is the land of opportunity in that regard, that you can just come from nowhere and and have nothing and come up financially to where you can live the life of your dreams. So I love that about the U.S. Um, that's
So,
the
you can't
main
do
thing
that
that I
in
love about the
Europe.
U.S.
I know
What's
Europe
that?
has like some sort of system where the richer you are, the more you get taxed, right? Tell us about that.
So
So, you can't do that in Europe?
you said you can't do that in Europe?
Like you can't, the system doesn't allow you to become that rich. Is that what you mean?
I
Because
I
I also
I
know European countries are well off as well, so maybe everyone
so
is a little bit well off. You
so
you make it
I
clear for us.
so I don't know if that's something that you can or can't do in Italy or excuse me, or Germany. I do know people who have started businesses, but it's nothing that they um, have retired on because it's still in the infant stage. There's actually some American barbers in the area that live in Germany, and they open up a barber shop, and I'm pretty sure they do really well. Um, so I would say that, just using them as an example, you could probably do the same thing in Germany as well. Probably it just depends on what product or service that you sell, and what the market is. As for the taxes, I'm not sure about the taxes, but I do know that the more money you earn and the richer you get, just and this is just from listening to wealthy people, they find ways around taxes. So the more money you make, you tend to want to keep as much as you can. And
Okay.
the,
Interesting.
the government does tend to incentivize people who start businesses and create jobs.
So I've not understood when you say in America you can come from nothing and through hard
Right.
work make it to the top. Are you trying to say in Europe you can't do that? In Italy or Germany you can't do
Um,
that? What
I'm
did you mean
saying
by
that
that?
I'm 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 not saying that you can't do it. I'm saying that I have not witnessed it. It's not been my
Mm.
experience, but that's not something that I've been looking at, because I was just answering the question, what's one thing that I appreciate about the US? That's one thing that I appreciate about the US, that you can literally come from nowhere and then just have a skill or a talent, develop it, find a way to market it, and then you could just come up from there. Um, but that's not always the case in other places. I just know that it's easy to do that in the US. So
Okay, I thank you so
actually,
much.
and
Mhm.
actually, it doesn't really matter where you are nowadays, because we have the internet. You can market whatever you're selling on the internet, and you can live anywhere as long as they have a stable connection.
Yes, I agree with you. Yeah, I agree with you. I thank you so much for sharing with us.
Yep.
Yeah, and
Thank you for having
Yeah,
me.
that's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for joining in, and we shall see you guys on the next stream. Bye bye.